You've seen this person. Maybe you live with them. Maybe you work next to them. They can't seem to do the laundry without shrinking everything. They can't cook without burning something. They can't fill out a simple form without making 3 mistakes. And somehow, every single time, you end up doing it yourself. Not because you volunteered, but because it was easier than watching them fail again. That is not incompetence. That is a strategy. This is called weaponized incompetence, and it is one of the most quietly effective forms of psychological manipulation that exists in everyday relationships. It does not look like manipulation. It looks like helplessness. It looks like someone who just genuinely struggles with basic tasks. But underneath that helplessness is a very deliberate pattern. A person who has learned that performing inability gets them exactly what they want. Less responsibility, more control. And someone else doing the work permanently. Here is what is actually happening psychologically. The person using weaponized incompetence is not unintelligent. In many cases, they are highly capable in areas that matter to them. They remember complex things. They manage situations that benefit them with no problem. But the moment a task they want to avoid appears, the competence disappears. Psychologists connect this behavior to a concept called learned helplessness, used offensively. Instead of being trapped by helplessness, they deploy it. They use it as a tool to redistribute responsibility onto the people around them without ever having to ask directly. The most effective part of this pattern is how invisible it is. The person never says, "I refuse to do this." They never make a demand. They just fail. Consistently, conveniently, in exactly the areas where failure means someone else steps in. And the person who steps in, the one who picks up the slack, redoes the task, fills the gap, they do not feel manipulated. They feel responsible. They feel like the capable one. They feel like they are helping. That feeling is the entire mechanism. It keeps them in the role permanently without them ever realizing they were assigned to it. And over time, something shifts in the dynamic. The competent person becomes the default for every difficult task. The incompetent person becomes untouchable because everyone has already accepted that they simply cannot do certain things. Expectations adjust, responsibilities solidify, and the person who orchestrated all of this never had to fight for any of it. They just had to keep failing at the right moments. You probably recognize this now in someone you know. Someone whose helplessness always seems to work in their favor. Someone who manages to be incapable of exactly the things they do not want to do. Someone whose failures always seem to land on your plate. Or maybe, if you are sitting with this honestly right now, you recognize something of this pattern in yourself. The tasks you have conveniently never learned. The failures that always seem to result in someone else taking over. Weaponized incompetence does not always come from a dark place. Sometimes it starts as survival, but it always ends the same way, with someone else carrying what was never really too heavy to carry.